Welcome to another episode of V for Veganism. I'm here with Kevin Chase, Vice President of Beagle Freedom Project, and also Raymond and Junior. Hey guys. Oh, okay, maybe they'll say hi later. Thank you so much for meeting with us and talking with us. Before we get into Beagle Freedom Project, you mentioned that you are 21 years vegan.
I am.
So can you talk a bit about how and why, and also making that change at a time when it wasn't like the cool thing to do?
For sure. It was definitely not as easy 21 years ago becoming vegan as it is today. We didn't have the selection of vegan ice creams or cheeses or even milks. And I remember using powdered rice milk for my cereal. Wow. It was awful. And I didn't go vegan for the culinary delights that you can get today. I went vegan because of animal rights reasons. In high school, as a part of an animal rights club, and then into college, I got involved with learning about animal ethics. And I read this book called Diet for a New America by John Robbins from Baskin-Robbins. And like he essentially gave up his claim to fame with the family business because he didn't believe in the use of dairy. And his book inspired me to try a vegan diet, and I've been vegan since. And I'm 39 now. I'm in great physical health. The strides we've made as vegans in terms of food pioneering, I think, is incredible. You know, I live here in New York City, and there is a plethora of incredible options. As a little kid, my best friend was a beagle. I'd sleep in his bed every night with Barney, my beagle. And as I grew up, and he unfortunately left us, in high school, I was getting involved in animal issues, and I didn't want to do the classic conundrum in your anatomy and physiology class, dissecting of a fetal pig or cat or the cow's eyeball. And so my professor at this really nice school I went to gave me an option of watching a couple of videos he got in the mail instead, and they were from PETA. And it was all about the use of beagles in laboratories, and it changed my world because that was my dog I saw in those videos. And I learned more from there. And since then, animal testing's been an issue that's resonated with me. It offends me just because we're using something sacrosanct like science for a very strong profit motive and at the expense of very vulnerable beings that most Americans have this real relationship with and can easily empathize with because they share our homes and our lives and a big part of our culture. So animal testing really offended me, and so I ran a campaign against animal testing, against one of the world's largest animal testing labs that had been exposed in multiple undercover investigations with workers wearing cameras in their buttons or in their glasses and documenting these workers literally punching little beagle puppies in the face, slamming them into walls, dissecting a primate while she was not just still alive, but semi-conscious and admitting it as such, falsifying research data, and this was the standard. And so we ran a campaign against this animal testing lab for 4 years. We drove it off the London Stock Exchange, the New York Stock Exchange, the NASDAQ, the over-the-counter bulletin board. We froze them down on the penny sheets. Their customers left them, their market makers, their investors, and the only reason they were kept open is a first world government gave them a bailout. And it was a real eye-opener for me. And so when I got a chance to put my toe back into activism again with animal testing, I liked the Beagle Freedom Project model because it wasn't about me making the best argument to the public. It was about connecting to the public in a way that very few issues can, and that was through heart. Letting these dogs just melt somebody's heart. It didn't have to be gory, didn't have to be an undercover expose. They just had to survive.
Getting into Beagle Freedom Project. So it's something that started in Los Angeles.
Beagle Freedom Project was a side mission by Junior of this larger nonprofit called Animal Rescue Media and Education, ARMY. And they were essentially they produced videos and documentaries about animal rights, but then they did some local rescue work too in LA. And they got a call back in, I believe, December of 2010, from a laboratory in San Diego saying, hey, we heard you're a rescue group that takes in special needs dogs. We have 2 experimentally spent beagles can you take them? Otherwise, we're going to euthanize. And so Shannon, who runs Army, had been doing rescue work for years, jumped at the chance. She wanted to help with these beagles. She'd been involved in campaigns against animal testing in the past. And so she went down and took the 2 beagles, and being a product of Los Angeles and a dad that is a director, she filmed taking the 2 beagles and watching their first moments as they stepped onto the grass. And she realized that that video and what these dogs had been through, and just looking at them as these living reminders, had more power to change a person's heart with respect to using animals in experiments than somebody like myself can do with my best words. These little dogs remind the general public that they are not abstract, furry little test tubes or petri dishes. They're animals no different than the ones 60 million Americans share their homes with, and they've become great ambassadors for this cause.
Why beagles are used in the first place, and we now know that they use beagles because they are sweet and they trust us, and because of their demeanor, they are, you know, kind of the most exploited.
The same great qualities that make them incredible family companions, and I can speak from firsthand experience, are the same qualities that research facilities seek out so they can more easily do these experiments. You know, I say this sort of jokingly, but there's a reason they don't use Rottweilers and Pit Bulls. They pick upon the sensitive guys, the ones that don't bite, that temperamentally are very people-pleasing and forgiving. And it's heartbreaking knowing that the best qualities about them are what makes them such easy prey.
Let's talk about how you got Raymond and Junior to begin with, and also tell us a bit about what it was like with them first coming into your home.
Sure. Well, I've had my experience with adopting 2 beagles is stereotypical, but on both ends of the spectrum. Because we have 2 different kinds of dogs that come out of laboratories. Those that are just so resilient that they want to leave the past behind them and just live for the moment because they love every new creature, comfort and food and soft surface and excitement they get. And then those who maybe suffered a little too much and are really hesitant about trusting people again. So my first dog, Junior, who we adopted in December of 2011, he was a part of a group of 40 dogs that came from a laboratory in Spain that was closing down. There had been originally 80 dogs, but by the time Beagle Freedom Project could secure the quarantine and work with the local rescue groups, the lab had already killed half of them. Junior was number 40. He was the next to be killed, but we got him. And they came to the United States, and his name is Junior because when we brought him to LA, they were named after Hollywood celebrities. So Junior is named after House of Cards star Kevin Spacey, but since I'm Kevin, we couldn't have 2 Kevins in the house because he'd get blamed for things I would do. Kevin, did you do that? Yeah, he did. So we named him Junior. And Junior's first night of freedom, he jumped into my bed, slept curled up right next to me, and that's where he slept every night since. He just wanted to leave the past behind because he loved every waking moment of being a freed dog. He had a couple traumatic hiccups, like he was scared, like most laboratory beagles are, with going through hallways and doorways, because they only associate that from being taken out of their kennel in the laboratory and being brought to a facility where something painful is usually done to them. So once he got over that traumatic hiccup, he's been an all-around normal, great dog. He's a couch potato at the end of the day. He just loves nothing more than hanging out, getting food, going on little walks, and he's a lovely little guy. Raymond, my sensitive little guy here, he was the opposite. So Raymond came out of a laboratory in the Midwest. His rescue is called the Minnesota 9 Legal Beagles, and we named all 9 beagles after co-sponsors of a piece of legislation we had in Minnesota for the Beagle Freedom Bill that mandates all laboratories that use dogs and cats in research have to release the healthy survivors when the experiment's done. They can't just kill them, which is the standard operating procedure in the animal testing industry. And so Raymond was named after Representative Raymond Dean, one of the co-sponsors of our bill. And Representative Raymond Dean actually has a framed picture of Raymond in his office at the Capitol, and he's currently running for mayor of Minneapolis, so Raymond's campaigning for him a little bit in his own special way. But Raymond was very different from Junior. When Raymond came out of the lab, he was traumatized through and through. He was the last dog at the rescue to be taken home. All the families there was 8 families and 9 dogs, and all the families kind of organically bonded with a dog that would come up to them, or one that they thought had a personality that would fit the energy of their home. Raymond was the only dog nobody could really touch. And so after everybody left with their dogs, I saw him, I'm like, come on, buddy, you're coming home with me. And it was hard because he didn't want anything to do with people. Yeah. He immediately jumped into Junior's bed, his brother, and wouldn't leave his side for the first couple of weeks. And it took a long time for us to get Raymond to learn how to eat. We had to hand feed him little bits of food in his dog bed. Forget about potty training those first 2 weeks because he was so bewildered. And it took about 6 months for him to properly come out of his shell. And to this day, he still is more sensitive than, he's coy, sensitive, a little more shy than a typical beagle. Unless you have a cookie, then he's your best friend. But he's come a long ways, and we're really proud of him. Yeah.
So I kind of want to get into something a little difficult, but because a lot of people don't know, what types of testing is going on? Like what are they being subjected to?
Dogs are commonly used for pharmacokinetics or toxicology testing. And so that means they're used to assess the toxicity of an ingredient in a given product, pharmaceutical drug, or academic curiosity. And they will administer a concentration of an ingredient in a product, like sucralose, which is Splenda, was tested on beagles at a lab called Huntington Life Sciences. And they would take, I think, 30 times the concentration of this artificial sweetener that a human would ingest. And they first injected it at, hi Raymond, he doesn't like this part of the talk, it brings back memories.
Actually.
They would first inject it into impregnated rabbits to see how it affected their babies, and then they moved on to dogs, and they typically administer things, whether it's sucralose or another product, either via injection, oral gavage, which means they take a long plastic tube and they shove it down the dog's trachea, and they simply pour the substance into their system, or through inhalation studies. And a lot of viewers are going to remember those famous pictures of the smoking beagles. The tobacco industry sponsored a lot of testing on beagles for years to show that it doesn't cause cancer, so we know animal testing works definitively. Right. With those dogs with their faces strapped into these masks, and they're forced to breathe smoke to study the effects. So that's typically what dogs are used for, is toxicity testing, and then some medical devices for cardiovascular studies as well. And unfortunately for those dogs, almost all of them are terminal. Very few of them ever get released after being involved in a cardiovascular study, because usually it means they take their heart out at the end of the research. Yeah.
Whew, that's really upsetting and really, really heavy stuff, but it's things that people don't know. Dog lovers, they are not even aware of what humans are doing to dogs.
There's about 60 to 65,000 dogs and 20,000 cats used annually in about 383 United States laboratories. And one of the reasons Beagle Freedom Project exists is to tell the stories of the survivors. And one of the first reactions we get anytime I'm at the dog park with Junior and Raymond, or any of our families that have a dog from a research laboratory, we get a lot of people that come up and they're like, oh, what a cute beagle. And when you tell the person the story of where this dog has been, and you flip that ear and you see that tattoo etched in ink permanently on their sensitive skin, it becomes very real to them. And the first reaction, almost to a T, everybody has is, wait, they still do that? I thought that was banned. And that's the reason Beagle Freedom Project exists. We have to get people to be aware of this problem, because there is this misconception that it's not happening. And that is to the research industry's benefit. Yeah. They don't want people to know what they're doing. They keep these animals in locked basement labs that are like Fort Knox. and very few people have access. Most media can't get a tour. I encourage you, ask for a tour and see what happens.
Let's try.
Yeah. I am assuming, based on the name of your blog, it's going to be a big fat no.
Yeah, we'll have to like call ourselves something else.
V is for Viagra or something. Yeah.
V is for Viagra.
Another product tested on beagles.
Wow.
Yeah. We, I think rightfully in a lot of respects, hold up science on a pedestal that we should, because they, producing research on that climate change is real, it's not fiction, what's happening to our environment, the link between diet and poor health that, emphasizes why we should have a vegan diet. But there's so much done in the pharmaceutical research industry that has nothing to do with promoting good health. Right. These pharmaceutical companies, they're not nonprofits. Right. If they cured cancer, they'd be putting themselves out of business. And one of the things I like to tell people is, just because I took dogs out of laboratories and I advocate against animal testing, a cruelty-free lifestyle, doesn't mean we're anti-science. We're as pro-science as they come, but simply put, testing on a beagle isn't necessarily going to be translatable to human health. My dog could go drink from a puddle on the street and not get sick. If you and I did that, we'd be violently ill. If you want to find a cure to feline leukemia, do you look at an elephant or do you look at a cat? And it's the same thing. 92% of all the drugs that are tested safe on dogs like my Raymond and Junior fail in phase 1 human clinical trials. That is a 92% failure rate. You'd have a more predictive model by flipping a coin. This is a broken system. These dogs are being tortured and dying unnecessarily, and it's to really nobody's benefit except for a few big pharmaceutical companies making a fortune. So we came up with our signature piece of legislation, which is called the Beagle Freedom Bill, and it mandates that any laboratory, particularly taxpayer-funded ones, which most of them are through NIH grants, must release these dogs and cats, if they survive the experiments, to rescue organizations. Now, it's not a panacea, it's not a cure-all, it's not ending animal testing, but it's raising awareness, and it's ensuring more of these dogs come out. And every little paw that hits the pavement in any given community has so much power to change a person's heart and their lifestyle, to help them go cruelty-free, and then yes, vegan too. So many of the people that have adopted dogs from us have gone vegan because they see animal cruelty and animal sentience so differently after knowing my little dog is a survivor of something like this.
How did you even begin to present that to legislators and kind of their reactions to it?
So we had this idea because Beagle Freedom Project, every year we do a mail out to every laboratory in the United States that uses dogs and cats in research, and we present them with this opportunity to work with us for those dogs and cats that survive experiments that they no longer need and are otherwise going to euthanize. And we tell them, we will, at our expense, travel to you, take all the animals, we will provide for their veterinary care, spay, neuter, vaccinations, whatever. We will sign liability agreements, meaning if they go missing, they ever end up biting somebody, it's completely on us. We'll even sign non-disclosure agreements that will never say the name of the lab. All they have to do is not kill the dog. Let us come and get them. Every year we've done that. You know how many responses we've gotten? One. One response, 10 dogs. And so we realized if these laboratories aren't going to voluntarily do this most basic, decent, right thing to do, then we must compel them legally and legislatively. So we came up with the Beagle Freedom Bill that removed it as an option, mandating that they have to have a post-research adoption program in place so dogs like Junior can get a second chance and have a soft spot on the couch. 6 states we've passed this bill in 4 years, which is pretty unheard of legislatively.
Yeah, no,
we're very proud of it. So we'll do this state by state if we have to. It's a vehicle to talk about this issue. So even if our bill doesn't pass in a given state, like in New Jersey, we're bringing it up in a state that's called America's Medicine Cabinet because it's got the highest concentration of pharmaceutical companies.
Really?
And we are bringing it up so more public knows that all these pharmaceutical companies are using dogs just like my guy.
Well, you have more than just beagles.
We rescue any animal from any laboratory. We're called Beagle Freedom Project because 95% of the dogs used in labs are beagles. breed of choice, but we take cats, mice, guinea pigs, rabbits, goats, ponies. We've even taken goldfish, ferrets, horses from laboratories. So we need adopters for all sorts of animals. And we also have a great app I just want to give a plug to called Cruelty Cutter. And it's free through Android or for iTunes. And it allows you to go to any store and you simply scan the barcode of a product and it will instantly tell you if that product was tested on animals or not. And it's a great product and helps you become cruelty-free.
Please make sure to go to beaglefreedomproject.org and check out all the great work that they are doing and figure out how you yourself can help. And please make sure to subscribe below, and thank you so much for watching, and we'll catch you next time.